Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody, to Let's Chat. I am your host, John, also known as Kawaii Guy. I have been a broadcaster in space for the past 20 years, and I love having this show where we can sit down with fellow broadcasters, talk about their journeys, their hopes for the space, and where Twitch can go in the future. I want to welcome you all there in the chat. If you have your most colorful emote, if you've got that dancing dino, I want you to sound off with all of the emotes right now. Also, in celebration of Pride Month, if you got those Pride emotes, let's see it in the chat. Heck yeah, such a goofball. In fact, a goofball who continues to make choices, as you can see from all the plush and things that I've been buying as of late that go into my backdrop. But I'm very excited today because we're going to be sitting with the one and only Detune, an incredible broadcaster who covers everything from music, obviously a great Just Chatter, and explorations of the paranormal. So without further ado, let's bring Detune to the stage. Detune, how you doing, bud?
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hey.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. No, I've been really looking forward to having a conversation with you because I've been catching all of the variety of things to be doing all across Twitch. And I figured it'd be a great opportunity to chat with everybody here about your journey in particular. So let's go back into the past. Where did it all start for you? Where did your love of music? Was it a game that inspired you? Let's go back to the early years of your creative exploration.
This one is a little bit of like I guess it'd be like a straight up origin story. In school and growing up, I was, I did like band in school, but it was never serious. I played like woodwind instruments and brass instruments. But in high school, I hit my head in a sports accident. I was football, wrestling, track all year round, sports and band type of person. But when I hit my head, I ended up in the hospital. I had brain hemorrhaging. I was in there for a couple weeks, and basically my neurologist was like, "You can never play sports again." So that like sent me down a spiral. That was like my life up to that point. And while I was hospitalized, my mom, being the saint that she bought me an acoustic guitar because I couldn't leave the bed. And
Amazing.
she's like, I know you showed interest before and you like music, maybe give this a try. And I did what I do and I obsessed over it. I learned it inside and out and just it became like a part of me. And then 3 years later, I signed my first record deal. Through that incident, and that set me down the creative path, and slowly that also kind of morphed into why I'm streaming as well.
Wow. It's wild to think, like, when I talk to a lot of broadcasters, a lot of people fall into this space effectively. Like they fall into this as a then potential career for them. They just broadcast one day and then all of a sudden something takes off, whether it's a clip or a show that they do, something on social media, and then it just skyrockets for them down a path that they weren't initially intending. And it sounds like it's very similar where you were heavily invested in sports and then all of a sudden you found this new obsession with music, and then that just started a whole train for you.
Yeah,
That's absolutely
it
wild.
it it straight up like changed the trajectory of my life. It kind of adjusted my life in a way that I never expected. Basically, when I hit my head, I also lost all my scholarships to school. The college I was going to also pulled my academic scholarships because I wasn't going to bring them sports money. Essentially, they've been known to do this, and so I had to rethink my entire future. I was on track. I was pre-med, and I was on my way to become a doctor. And I realized shortly after starting college that there was no way I could put myself through med school. No matter if I worked every job I could, every scholarship I could took out every loan, I was still going to be short like 70, 80K a year. And I just had to pivot. So then I went all in on music. That led me to touring the world, which was really cool. I put out some really cool albums with the bands I was in. And that put me into music production. I started recording and writing for a living. And then I guess to connect it back to Twitch, there was 2 years in a row where I was burning myself out recording. I was in my studio for 14 hours a day, recording and writing for bands 8 hours, then doing my own thing for 4 hours, then mixing and mastering when I can at the end of the night. And the only the only time I had off in those 2 years were my mom's birthday and Christmas. And I realized that I'm gonna start hating music. So, because I'm a workaholic, I'm like,
Mm,
maybe let me try out streaming because I can play the games I want to play, but it's going to make me feel like I am working towards something to like trick my brain into having fun. Um,
mm,
so then I booted up Subnautica as my first game ever streamed, and I slowly kind of fell in love with it. I was only streaming to the bands I was recording at the time. So it was
yeah.
like people I was already spending all day with. And then they would be like, "Oh, you were playing on your lunch break. I want to see where you get later in the night when you go live." Um, and then that kind of snowballed from a hobby. 2020 happened, and then I realized I can't record bands as much anymore. So let me see
Hmm.
what I do with streaming, and I kind of started going all in on it, and then it just became my career. Very, very, very accidentally falling into something that I love.
It's so interesting. It's funny, like you were saying. Obviously, there's the workaholic concept, and it sounds like when you were producing, you're like, okay, I have to keep making, have to keep making, have to keep making.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt similarly when I first landed into the YouTube scene, because I started creating on YouTube back in 2005. 2007 to 2008, the economy crashed, and it was pretty rough for like the housing market and all sorts of things across the space. And then I got into this mode of like constant creation, constant creation, constant creation, and did that full time till 2013. And when I think about that phase of investing like constantly into creating something, you said you were effectively avoiding burnout with creating it in other means. I guess, how
Yes.
did you balance that aspect here?
uh, I that's just a part of my brain, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's something I'm working through and have worked through in therapy where I did not feel self-worth unless I was creating value. That is
Mm,
something that's been ingrained in me for a long time that like if I'm not making or creating or giving value to somebody else, it's really hard for me to feel like I have self-worth. So that was like an unintentional buff, I guess, in the beginning of my streaming career.
right.
And I also at the same time was in a nice position to take everything I learned from the music industry, all the predatory practices of labels and management and things like that, and apply it to, a different form of entertainment. But like music and streaming, the industries are so close together as far as like the how things act behind the scenes, the same traps that people could fall into, the same lessons you learn. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a head start on um how I should dictate where I go in streaming.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then there's an interesting thing where you're mentioning like how being in the hospital, being presented with an instrument, learning the instrument, working towards the mastering of that instrument, then transitioning out of this burnout phase into the creator sphere on Twitch or going into live broadcasting. There's another learning phase that's occurring there. And there was actually a comment that came up, and I'm curious because you effectively went through the journey of just getting started, discovering, figuring out what works for you, and going forward. Malker said in
Yeah.
chat, what do y'all think is the best way for small creators to grow on the platform? Well, first, I will say, get rid of the word small from your vocabulary. You are a
Yeah.
creator. If you're broadcasting, you are a creator. Don't
Yes.
isolate towards the viewership. But I think there's a journey element that you can speak to here in how did you approach the space being it so fresh? Or like, how are you figuring out what stories to tell to connect with people at the start of your
Yeah.
career?
Yeah. I mean, first thing I want to hit on for those who are, getting into streaming, new into the streaming space, don't worry about so much like the flashy gear and all the lights and all this. Kind of focus on what you're doing first as the content you're making and what you want to create and put into the world. But the one thing I will say is please, 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 if you can focus on one thing, focus on audio. If you have to skip on a camera and go camless for a bit or just like a cheap webcam, just have good audio. Bad visuals, it's fine. People can live with. Bad audio will physically drive people away because it hurts. It is a thing that gets overlooked a lot. If you have audio that is peaking, crackling, distorted, it's painful to listen to. So that is the one thing in your
Mm-hmm.
control that I feel like you should definitely focus on if you are starting out.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's
Exactly.
just a very thing. It's something I preach all
No,
the time.
no, it's a valid one in that I feel like especially when it comes to audio sensory aspects. Like visuals, we can handle when we process, and I think it's because we're exposed to so much flashiness or standardization or basic. Like we're able to pivot. Our eyes are able to pivot pretty effectively. But if
Yeah.
something is grating on the ears, it becomes very tough to
Yes.
engage or enjoy what a person is saying, doing, etc. So thinking through the balancing of your audio, it should be something that everybody should be considering.
Yeah.
They actually asked a good follow-up question for you here. Is there anything you miss from when you first started that has changed as you have grown in popularity?
Maybe not knowing so much of the stuff behind the scenes. That
The
is that
veil
is
being lifted on how the
the
industry works. Yeah.
the veil being lifted. That happens in any industry, but that is that can be tough because sometimes you learn that things are within or without of your control. Sometimes you learn how things actually operate in a way that like takes the whimsy out of it, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Mm,
And then once the veil's lifted, you realize that's like, okay, well now I have to think about my fun hobby and career more like
mm.
a business as well. Because it is what it is. It is a business at the end of the day if you want this to be a career. But once that veil is lifted, there's no going back.
Yeah, it's like what I would refer to like as the Hollywood effect for especially young actors or actresses, directors coming out to Los Angeles when I was first living out there. The thought is, oh, I'll go out, I'll land the gig, I'll get right into film production, but then you start to really understand what goes on behind the scenes in film production, the long hours, the exhaustion, more no's than yeses. It's something of which you kind of have to prep your body for, and especially being a musician and having navigated that circuit, it's very similarly like, will I get the booking? Will I get the venue? Will the
Yeah.
audience buy the tickets to the show? All of these things come into play. And so, are there any exercises or mental exercises you do for yourself to keep yourself balanced every time you go onto a stage so that now that the veil has been lifted, you understand how the flow goes? It doesn't, it doesn't affect you emotionally.
Realizing that there's only so much that's within your control and focusing on honing your skills on the things that are within your control. Because
Mm.
there's gonna be things that happen that's outside. Sorry, plane flying by.
It's fine. That's me sending my crew to scan and make sure everything's fine. It's all good. Don't worry about
Nice,
it.
nice. But yeah, focusing on what's within your control, focusing on what you can do and how you can grow yourself and not necessarily your
Mm.
stream. All of that will kind of come into play and help you when potentially you get a lucky moment. This is something I saw a few times in chat, somebody asking like how do you grow your channel and all that stuff. The biggest thing I could say is like there is an element of luck to streaming. It's just it is what it is. It's the same as entertainment, music, acting, whatever. There's always going to be luck, but you need to put in the prep work so when that lucky moment happens, you can capitalize
Mm.
on it. There was a big turning point in my career because I got really lucky with something that I created that ended up being shared by some creators I really look up to. And if I didn't go in the mentality of like I want to stream like I'm streaming to the world. I want to act and produce a show that if someone comes across it, then I'm going to try to captivate them enough for them to stay. Um,
Mm.
so that was my thinking going into it, and I wrote a song for this YouTube channel, just for fun. It was a YouTube channel called Unis Honest. It was Markiplier
Mm.
and Ethan Nesser. It was going by Crank Gameplays back then. I just remixed one of their silly songs that they did during 2021 because their channel only exists for a year and they were going to delete it. And it was like me paying a tribute because their channel gave me something during the day, every single day during 2020 to get through. They did one channel or one video per day for a year and then deleted everything. So it was a really cool channel that helped a lot of people. So I wrote this song, and it ended up getting picked up on Twitter. Mark saw it, shared it, and that gave a huge influx of new people coming to my channel. And when they came to my channel, luckily I came with the mind or the state of mind of like I want to make sure I'm doing everything within my power to capitalize on a lucky moment, and that was my lucky moment right there. That was the
Mm.
turning point of my career, and has, put me on the trajectory that I am right now.
Yeah. But and it's being ready for when the stage is open to you, or rather when the gates of audience are potentially open to you, being ready for that moment. The Steve Martin, a great comedian, magician, you name it. He does all sorts of things across our space. Incredible movie actor. Often would have people come up to him and they would ask him, hey, I'm trying to break into entertainment. How can I break into entertainment? How do I get a manager? And his answer to them was always, be so good they can't ignore you. And so think of like when you're going live on a broadcast, are you bringing a show to the screen that is something that can't be ignored, that people want to immediately tune into, watch, understand who you are, what you stand for, lean in? Because if you're not presenting a show like that, the expectations of growth just will never be there, or like they
Yeah.
shouldn't be there, because you aren't giving them effectively the greatest show on earth. And so think about that for yourself.
I try to tell people who ask questions about streaming as well. It's like, okay, you got a raid. You have 20 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds to captivate their attention enough to get them to stay. And if you can get them to stay, usually up until the 5-minute mark after a raid, you have them locked in. But you need to have your elevator pitch essentially ready to go, get them intrigued enough to wonder what's happening next, and give them enough of who you are and what you do in such a flash in the pan way that they're going to be like, wait, what is happening here? And then once you get that 5-minute mark, they're usually just cruising through the rest of your stream with you. And it's really helpful when you know the values of the community you want to build, and having those values being able to be shown and seen when someone first comes in is such a huge boon in the streaming space.
That's right. Because if you're not ready for that moment and you're not ready to capture them coming in, no amount of exposure, no amount of discoverability, no amount of front page placements will work for the growth that you are seeking. So really think about, how am I capturing them in that first 30 seconds when that viewership comes in? I guess I'd love to expand on this concept of community, because obviously over the years you've grown with community bases. There were people interested in your music. There are people interested in what you're now exploring. You're doing a lot of paranormal investigations on your channel, which is quite compelling content. I guess how do you define community on your side when it comes to the audience that you're building?
Yeah, so best way to phrase it. Basically, when I started streaming, the biggest thing I wanted to do was to create a space that younger me would have felt comfortable in. For those who are on the younger side, early internet was rough. People like me were not allowed in a lot of spaces. People like me were the brunt of every single joke and every single disparaging comment, and it was rough. It was really rough to just exist, because like you were constantly being punched at every room you go into. So my thinking of building a community was like, I would love a space to create that, that 16, 17-year-old me would just like feel accepted and comfortable in, to just be themselves. And that was the basis of how I wanted to create the space that I wanted to, where we can, we're all a bunch of weirdos. We're all internet kids. We're chronically online by nature. We're here on Twitch. So I wanted to create a space where we can just do that and exist and be who we are, but like not stray away from talking about heavy topics and serious things, or doing goofy just chatting streams, or going to allegedly haunted mansions and bringing chat along and exploring these things. So that was kind of always my my thinking of what I wanted to create and why I wanted to stream. What did I want to cultivate, instead of just, hey, everyone come watch me do a thing? It's, hey, let's have this space where we could be ourselves. And what I'm doing is just like we're gathering and hanging out in a basement and watching YouTube or like videos together. And that's kind of the vibe that I wanted to go with.
I love that. It's people often will say, even on this program or on the space, like the concept of authenticity, and the authenticity is meaning just creating the space of which you want to live within, that you can invite others to join you in. So like, as you look at like my backdrop, for example, I showcase Earthbound collection that I have, my Pokemon gifts that people have sent me over the years. And that just showcases my love. So if somebody were to come in and also share that love, we have a lot to talk about and
Yeah.
immediately can open a conversation in the same way that you're describing like the basement experience. I recall having like, early LAN parties, but before we started to be able to like connect Xboxes and PCs together to do all the like, let's say Quake or Unreal Tournament and stuff like that, we would sit and play GoldenEye in the basement, and that vibe of just hanging out with
Yeah.
friends. And you're like, okay, are you going to be that kid who chooses odd job? We like to have that element of there's the relatability, how you approach the space, what you can bring to the space, and how we can all come together to create. So I love that is how you've identified it for yourself, is stemming from your own comfort. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned like early internet, and early internet was a thing, uh, especially back when dial up was dial up. And I saw a person make a comment about that, like the AOL AIM sounds and ICQ. For those who remember that, I still remember my ICQ number. I think I was sharing it with investors the other day. But like when we think about some of those spaces and where we weren't welcome,
Yeah.
how do you approach that when it comes to Twitch, when it's just like, this is the space we've curated? If you're with the vibes of what we're creating, you are welcome. If you're not, how do you handle that?
I like to play with my food. It's just the best way I can phrase it. I like to play with my food. Every stream I get people coming in and just being terrible, being racist, being, homophobic, or trying to be transphobic, trying to be anything they could
Mm,
possibly do. And I like to very playfully but sternly kind of put them in their place in a way that they usually never have a response to what I'm saying, because they're
mm,
realizing what they're saying is stemmed in such ignorance and you know diabolical misinformation in a spot that they don't even know what they're thinking and can't even understand why they're thinking that way. So I
mm.
guess I kind of like psychologically pick them apart and then they eventually
I'm very
leave and
impressed.
I'm just like, all right.
I'm impressed with the approach, because like I was always horrible with hecklers. I tried stand up for in my early career when we were doing sketch comedy on YouTube. I was like, I'll do a few open mics, and hecklers ruin my experience. So I'm immediately
Yeah.
one of just like, yeah, I can't play with the food. I don't have the energy for it. Nor things for the viewers. You're not expected to have to play with your food, but it's very interesting how you're looking at it as possibly like a re-education opportunity for them, but also settling them in their space.
Yeah.
And I think it's a needed thing, and for those who can, uh, do it. I know I'm a
Yeah.
horrible person at doing that.
I mean, there's quite a few people who are in my community now that started as a random trying to go at me. And then it got to
Mm.
the point where they were like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry." like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, I didn't realize," after like it gets to a certain point. And some of those people are like, cornerstone members of the community now, because we try to, I try to give a learning moment. And if a learning
Mm.
moment doesn't happen, they're gone. And I just have fun and like I get enjoyment. I come from the music world. I'm used to hecklers
Yeah,
in the crowd being annoying. So I get to have my little stand-up bit for a little bit.
exactly.
But yeah, I always try to give a learning moment. Um and that's what it is. But of course there's also like the infamous Summer of the Hate raids.
Oh
I
my God.
was
Yep.
one of the main targets for that entire summer, to the point where it was like 5 months of having my stream completely locked down because I didn't know what to do. It was still earlier in my streaming career. I guess, yeah, it would still be in my earlier side. Um, but then things like that are you have to handle obviously differently, and a little more, scorch earth policy with something like that.
Yeah.
So it all kind of comes together with uh the context of how things are happening.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I know that especially during that period in time, sometimes during celebration months when people are being lifted up the stage, people like to try to blow them off that stage. Like they like
Yeah.
to say, you know what? No, you aren't worthy of the attention. Like I saw on social, there's people making choices with things they're saying about, some of the space we live in, especially during Pride Month. And there was a question in the chat of like, effectively, the larger you get, and as you begin to build audience, like the experience of more trolls coming in, I feel like the higher up the mountain you go, the harder the wind blows.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
people want to see people fall at times.
Mhm.
So I guess, have you felt that as you've discovered or grown with your audience? Do you feel like the frequency of these types of individuals, the trolls coming in, etc., are trying to, throw you off what you're doing.
Yeah, I definitely know. I mean, it's once every stream now, at least once every stream.
Mm.
But I guess because you deal with it so much, you kind of get your system on how to deal with it. So it's like
Mm.
a double-edged sword. You are being exposed to it so much more, but you know what to do and how you want to handle it personally. And it's a hard thing to learn. Obviously, it's like easier said than done, but it's very yeah. I mean, I definitely deal with a lot more. Luckily, Twitch has implemented some things. Can
Yep.
I say I wish that would have happened a little bit sooner during that summer?
No, I
But
think it's fine. No, always fine to, like, trust me, critique is always welcome on this front. But like, it was the same thing of like, we were, as creators, needing to build tools to fill
yeah,
gaps at times. Like,
yeah,
especially like the introduction of the shield tool we now have, but back when that was happening, we had to figure it out
yeah.
as creators to, how to navigate it.
I mean,
Um,
verified phone numbers is such a massive
yes.
thing for those who don't know who are watching here, and I saw a few people talking about like bot raids that are happening to you. Go into your settings and set up verified phone number. So people can't talk in your chat unless they have a verified phone number. You could do it the way I have it set up is like verified phone number or followed for X amount of time. So it can do
Mm,
both at the same time. That immediately stops bots from spamming because they can't verify these phone numbers. So if you're getting people coming through and just slamming just nonstop responses off of a bot script, that can't happen anymore if you set
yep.
that setting up.
Yep. I see a question here in the chat. When you say people like us weren't accepted in the early internet, what are you referring to? I can speak on my behalf. As a
Yeah.
queer individual, I was not welcome in some internet spaces early on. In fact, I had to
Yeah.
hide and mask who I was presenting.
Yeah.
And so, in that regard, I think I'll personally reflect on that side. But Detune, if you want to talk about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, being a person of color, immediately made most spaces pretty rough to exist in. Just the punchline of every joke being towards people of color, but being towards black people, being towards people who are not straight. I'm pansexual, and so like getting double-edged swords of just I'm being attacked for who I am, who my parents were, and then attacked for just wanting to exist and just minding my business. Those things were just immediately and always, if you were an old head on the internet, you were always being smacked and hearing these things that you did not have to hear from people who just like didn't care or were just anonymous on the internet and want to get away with saying some of the most egregious stuff as a punchline. Are you
Yeah.
gay? I just said I'm pansexual. What's up?
So I think like when coming down to it, it's just like the greatness of the internet, the greatness of Twitch is like there's so many different communities can exist simultaneously. You can find the pockets of individuals that you identify with, that you can collaborate with, that you can create with, that you can just sit back and relax with, watch in the evening. And
Yeah.
so what I love about that concept is early internet, there was very few spaces, I would say. And over time, it's now to the point where there's so much content, there's so much video out there for us to consume. There's no possible way any of us will ever watch everything that's being produced on the internet. So it
Yeah.
allows us the choice to join spaces, to tune into broadcasters that we identify with. And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the things I encourage. Like anytime, for anybody who's in the chat, if like you pop into a thing, it's not for you. Trust me, there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other places you can also go and watch on the internet that
Yeah.
identifies with you.
Yeah.
So just want to plant that seed. So when we're talking about navigation of like you were talking about, obviously going into record deals, navigating with brands we were talking about a little bit before this. How do you choose who to work with on the business front or on the brand side? Let's say if a person comes to you as a broadcaster and says, I would love to be a part of your programming. How do you choose whether to say yes or no with an individual?
That one's a little more, I guess the straightforward answer is like, do I align with the brand's values?
Mm.
And do they, do they have do they have values to begin with? Because there's certain lines I don't want to cross. There's certain things I don't want to be associated with. Just a personal viewpoints on things, and like I feel like
Yeah.
that's fine and valid. There's a lot of predatory brands out there. People, please taking stop taking affiliate deals and working for free. We are past that point on the internet. You do not have to do that. There should be a minimum payout for you to work with somebody, because that is predatory practices, and that shouldn't be a thing. Shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
You better be getting paid or free product or something. Don't, no matter your size, please don't just take anything that comes across as affiliate deal, because they are taking advantage of you 100%.
Especially if there's an ask associated with it. So like,
Yes.
let's say, for example, a brand is like, hey, I love your style, I just want to send you product. There's no obligations.
Oh yeah.
You can accept that as a gift from them. That's completely
Yeah.
fine. We're not saying in that regard. But when a brand approaches you and says, hey, I would like to, have you just support our game, but they don't provide the game code, they don't provide a product, they don't provide a payment. This is where I saw a few people say, know your worth. Your worth will be very specific to you. Like, people often ask, like, what is the rates? What are the rates in the industry? It is defined by you in regards to how much time will it take you, what are the resources required in terms of the equipment that you'll have to utilize, how much are they asking of your space when it comes to promotion? Is it a stream? Is it a social post? Is it a multi-part? Like, all of that is determined by you. And the best way to navigate that, if a brand is coming to you, is to say, what's your budget?
Yep.
And just start
Yep.
there. Don't give
Yep.
them a rate. Ask them what their budget is.
Yeah.
And if they
Hit 'em
say,
with
unfortunately, we don't have budget, then you can say, well, I look forward to talking with when you do, if they align
Yeah.
with you.
I mean, and I've accepted, like, from games I really want to play, and a dev knows I'm a big fan of it. They would like hit me up and be like, "Here's a game code." I'm like, "Sick, I'm gonna play it," and then just disclose that it was given to me, and because that's within a value that I feel like I want to, support and help in any way I can, because like it is a product that I care about. So there's always a little bit of give and take, and you just have to kind of use your judgment with it as well. If
Yep.
that makes sense.
Exactly. And especially when you're saying tying it to the values of the brand and what they're showcasing, many people don't go through like the personal exercise of what are your personal values, like writing it down for yourself, being very, I like the word of like being discerning, like being intentional with who you associate with. So one of the largest partners, or at least longest lasting partners that I've worked with in the brand space is Sanrio, Hello Kitty. Small gift, big smile. Do something small for somebody will change their life and make them very happy. And like always thinking through that.
Yeah.
That's a component that I align with very well. Another component is I want the world to suck less. So if you have that
Yes.
same mentality, let's work together. And so I think by understanding what values you showcase, not as only as an individual, but also with your brand and what you put forward, that will help you make those decisions when it comes to people approaching you.
I wanted to read this. Still hard seeing me as a 48-year-old blue-collar worker to see my content as a product just seems weird. It doesn't have to be. I guess that's something I really want to hit on. It literally could just be a hobby. Streaming doesn't have to be a product. It doesn't have to be a career. It can be a for fun hobby, especially if you have your main, you have your main job and you just want to have a good time and do something different and just kind of have a new type of hobby to meet new people. Streaming can be that too. It doesn't have to always be end of the day, content is my life and this is what I do forever type of thing. I didn't even know I wanted to do content as a career when I first started streaming. It was a hobby. I just want to share adventures with some friends and play games with some people. And then it kind of fell into a career. And luckily I love it. And I'm like, oh, sick. This is a fun career. And I'm excited. It's a lot of work, but it's something that brings me personal fulfillment.
Yep. It all comes down to your intent for broadcasting. Some people are coming in to share a love or an experience or share their favorite game or just go through that journey. Some are seeking number goes up. Some people love to just celebrate, oh, I have another number, another follower, another subscriber, etc. Some people just like to chase the numbers. That's a strategy. Some people are there for the money. Some people will come to prove something professionally for themselves. Like speedrunners are a great example of, I want to do better than my last time, in the same way that an
Yeah.
athlete wants to go into a space like that. So think for yourself, like, what is the intent when you're coming into broadcast? All of them are valid. All of them can be choices that you make. But if it is along the lines of number goes up or money, if you're not thinking about what you're presenting to the space as a product, or as any other brand would introduce a storefront and then the products of which you can purchase within that store, if you're not thinking in that way, don't expect that number to go up very high.
Yeah.
So you have to
Yeah.
think about that.
It's all, yeah, at the end of the day, it's just depends on what you want to get out of it, is how you should
Mm,
approach it. If you want it to be a business and you want it to be a career, then you're ready for to be working at all hours all the time forever. That's just the reality of it. If you want to succeed in content, streaming, being live on stream, I'll be honest, 35% of the job.
mm,
Maybe 40 if you do marathon streams, but it is heavily small compared to what you have to do off stream to grow and to be a creator. Most of my time, I'm at my computer working on stuff for stream, for, emails coming through, or YouTube stuff, or TikTok stuff, or Instagram stuff, or planning out my next streams. And all of that takes way more time than just being live itself. So when my viewers are like, "Hey, take the night off, don't stream tonight," well, it's like, I could, but I'm still gonna be working. I just don't have to be as extroverted while I work.
yeah, there's a few good ones that people are actually talking in. Daggett on Twitch says streaming can also be a form of self accountability if you're fitness focused, learning craft. Exactly. I
Sure.
mean, a great fitness focused broadcaster, Domination Time, who's also an ambassador, focuses on their fitness routines, and they're getting their workouts in. They're bettering themselves. They're showcasing, how they are approaching meal prep, all that while live. So it's a part of their life they're just bringing to the stage.
Yeah.
Blades of Doom says they're just a lowly programmer in college for software engineering. You're not lowly if you're learning programming languages. That's something of which I wish I invested more of my time into. But
Yeah,
doing
you are
game
you
dev
are on
on
the right
stream,
path.
you're in the right, I would say, right industry path right now. But if you're doing game dev on stream, that's an incredible thing, that not only are you practicing your learning of what you're taking from university, bringing it to an audience and continuing to study. I did that for a while with my Japanese language learning, where I would study live with my audience. And that personal investment into self betterment is also a value add. So even if it was an exchange of, you know what, I'm not too worried about the viewership or the followership today, I want to take this time to share something of which I am personally working on, that is also a valid broadcast. So it always comes down to what you want to focus on. So just
Yeah.
think through what's best for you. And there is no, and I will say this, there is no such thing as a true best practice, because if there were, we'd all be millionaires following that path. Every person is very
True.
unique.
We'd all be Kai just in the basement making
Doing
the
sleepover
most
parties with famous
absurd
celebrities.
content. Yes.
We would all be doing that.
Just casual celebrities coming to hang out.
Exactly, exactly. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about the paranormal shows you've been doing, because
Yeah.
your elevation of IRL broadcasting, as I'm seeing a lot more people, especially as we head into the summer months, more people are going to be going outside of spaces like what we're currently in and taking their shows out on the road. I
Mhm.
would love to just talk about, one, just like the physical setup of how you accomplish what you do, but
Yeah.
also you approach your show in a way that I think many IRL broadcasters could learn from when it comes to, location releases, like talking with the spaces and ensuring you can film in public. So I'd love to just talk through your flow of,
Yeah.
how you do that show.
Yeah. Okay. So for those who are not aware, I do this show a few times a month called Paranormal Detour. I travel to allegedly haunted locations around the U.S., hopefully around the world soon, funding depending. And we just explore these spaces, and I bring guests along, different guests every time. I built a multicam backpack rig. So I have a POV cam for chat. I have a face cam so y'all can see my reaction, similar to just a regular stream camera in the corner. And we go through and we just spend, 8 to 10 hours exploring these decrepit haunted places with friends. And that's basically the premise of the show. It's kind of like a lighthearted romp through the paranormal, where I'm not trying to change anyone's minds. I'm not trying to convince people ghosts are real. I'm just I guess at the core, trying to elevate what horror content could be on Twitch. I
Mm.
started as a horror game streamer. That's kind of my bread and butter, is like doing indie horror games. But I'm like, what is the next step of a scary stream? What if I go to the locations that these games are based off of and just be there in person, and the unknown aspect of it, and the night vision aspect of it, it creates very, very scary moments, and very fun moments.
You've had some great footage over the years, and like even describing basically the proton pack that you have on your back with all of that tech freaks me out in terms of just the technical needs of what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Was it always like when you approached the show, you immediately went in with all this large setup? Did you start off a little bit lighter? I guess, how did you approach it
Yeah.
as the growth there?
So it took me about a year to research the tech needed. I knew how I wanted to set up the stream, and the biggest thing that I wanted to do was to make it feel like a gameplay stream. Because I was not an IRL streamer to begin with. In my community, I didn't want them to get whiplash from going from games to IRL. So I'm like,
Mm.
how do I set up my stream to look like a gameplay stream, except the gameplay is just real life? So I went through different multicam setups and multicam boxes to figure out how to build an arm and a shoulder cam and a monitor so I could see what they're seeing, because something like this I can't rely on watching. Most IRL streamers watch Twitch on their phone to see
That's
what's
right.
going on. And I can't have that delay in something like this. I need cameras to be spot on and in focus so things don't get missed. So it was a absurd amount of tech building to even make the cameras possible, and then an absurd amount of problem solving to make sure I get signal. Streaming
Mm.
1080p in a prison in the middle of Oklahoma. Like, how is that going to work if
Yeah.
there's no cell service? So I had to figure out how to do that and bond all different services together using also like Starlink and different ways. But so far, we've never had a location, knock on wood, that I couldn't stream from yet. And we've been to some very middle of nowhere, town of 200 people type locations.
Wow. I think of just like the signal I try to get when just going around Los Angeles, and I'm like, that's a horrible internet infrastructure that needs to be fixed for us. It's been a blessing that you haven't had any issues. Like I could anticipate perhaps if you were doing like the Crips in Paris or something like that, go
That
deep
funny
down
you say
below.
that.
Did you
That
do
is
a broadcast
my
there?
No, but that is my dream location. I
Ah,
want to go to the crypt so bad. I'm terrified of being underground. I'm terrified of caves. Like, those tight spaces freak me out. That is my dream setup or location, and I've already mapped out how I could feasibly do it. I've
mm.
like I've like figured out the gear of like, okay, relays like this far apart to get this
Oh
much
shoot, you're gonna have
bandwidth and
Wi-Fi
this.
relays basically all throughout the
Yes,
area, so that way you
to
get the
see
signal
how
fed outside. Yep.
Yep, to see how deep down I can get into these
Wow.
caves, and I'm already like planning that out, even though, like, that is way down the road in order to figure out that travel and getting stuff over there and like work visas and getting access. But I'm already like, I need to do this. This will be the greatest, scariest stream.
Oh, chat, we need to make this happen. We need to figure this out. Yeah, exactly. As L Honeybee says, manifest it. We got to manifest it into the universe and make it happen. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Are there other, I guess, like dream scenarios for your broadcast? If you could do anything on your show at
Hmm.
all, are there other areas? Like I remember I was working with the like Will Smith's family wanted to go to a volcano a while back, and I remember talking with
Yeah.
their family back working on that. So it's like, are there other things that you would love to see and capture and share with your crew?
Yeah, I mean, the paranormal streams obviously take. It's just a one-person production right now. I'm doing everything by myself. Besides, I have a video editor. But outside of that, traveling streams sound really fun. Doing like, going to like, I'm trying to think. I want to do more IRL type stuff, and
Mm.
traveling stuff, and going to places that are so like, just like dream destinations that we can go together and kind of, I would love to go up north and stream the Northern Lights. I would love to
Oh yeah.
do camping streams and like explore the redwoods. I would love to do things like that. I would also love to do silly game shows as well, where I could do like horror themed game shows just because I love spooky stuff.
Yeah.
But also a dream would be to cross that threshold into mainstream entertainment and have like musical artist guests join me on Paranormal Detour, or like actors or things like that. Like that would be so sick. I'm just constantly trying to figure out what we could do that's outside of the box and what we could do that is interactive
Mm.
with chat, because the biggest thing about the paranormal show is it is interactive. Chat has a control over cameras, they have control over what we do and where we go. There's a voting system to figure out how we go about things. They clip evidence that we miss and we, review when we get home. So I want to keep pushing outside of the box content in a way that is like giving a sense of immersion and accessibility to those
Mm.
watching along, because I think that's really cool, and like I would watch that, and I guess that's why I want to create it, because at the end of the day I want to create things that I think I would also watch.
Ooh, I love that you said that as a major beat, because actually, as a question for the chat, for those of you who broadcast, how many of you go back and watch your own show? And are you willing to watch
Ooh.
your own show? And do you enjoy watching your own show? Because I
It's
know,
rough.
for example,
I'll tell you.
it can be tough. It can be tough at times. Like I think of like my gaming broadcasts. I usually don't go back and watch my gaming broadcasts, but my DJ sets, I love going back and watching what I did with the mix and doing
Yeah.
that. And so I think that's something that like we can get into the good practice of what I'm producing. Is it something I would want to watch? Is it something I would want to enjoy? And what Detune was saying as well when it came to the creative ideation of what can work is like looking at things that haven't been done before, thinking outside the box. This reminds me of what we used to refer to as in the creative space as like the BuzzFeed model, which used to be nostalgia, humor, and value equals the share. So nostalgia, does it relate to you, your past, a past experience, something of which you enjoy? Humor, does it make you laugh, make you cry, make you angry? And values is something you've never seen before. That is what will result in somebody sharing it or continuing to watch it. So think through
Yeah.
yourself as you're breaking down your content. Am I hitting these three pockets in
Yeah.
something of which I can contribute to personally?
Speaking
So
of BuzzFeed, BuzzFeed Unsolved, Ryan and Shane were the inspiration for my paranormal show.
no kidding.
um
Yeah.
Basically I thought like, if Ryan and Shane did a live broadcast where they just, kind of scuffily went live from the place they're filming for 8 hours, would I watch it? And it's like, yes, I'd watch every single second, because of the unknown factor. Like, I think
Mm.
making content like this live, the biggest thing is like, you don't want to miss the big moment and the suspense of like, you have no idea when it's going to happen. But if a
Mm.
YouTube video comes out, you know that nothing ridiculous happens because you'll hear about it on social media before you even watch the video. So it's like, that is already kind of spoiling that there's not a huge moment. When we
Mm.
do it live, everyone's like on the edge of their seat and nothing could happen for like a half hour, but everyone's like, oh my god,
But they're
wait,
waiting for
when,
the beat. Yeah.
and then when it happens, everyone's like, oh my god. It just, it lends a whole different feel. And that's the thing I want to capture going forward with like any other content I want to do outside of paranormal stuff, outside of streaming in my office. I want to recapture that moment of like anticipation, because it's fun.
Mm.
The anticipation is such a it's why horror works in general, waiting for that
Yep.
jump scare and then
Waiting
the
for the jump
release
scare, the
from it.
monster reveal or non-reveal of the monster. Like there's, if you look at like a good comparison is honestly like in script writing, how everything
Yeah.
will go in a sequence of beats. There are several acts to every execution. Well, if you think of Jaws, there's the introduction of like the inciting incident. Okay, there was a shark attack. What are they going to do? They're going to try to shut down the beach. They keep the beach open, results in another act, and then eventually it builds up to the climax where they're on the boat and the shark is trying to take out the three dudes who are there, slightly drunk, trying to make their way through the ocean. And so if you think of structuring your show in those beats, every person here can do the same when it comes to building up the anticipation. If you're playing Elden Ring, tonight I am going to try to knock out X number of bosses, or I'm going to try to take out Millennium. I'm trying to take out this. It's like you can build the arc of expectation.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious your thoughts on this, Detune. I typically, once I hit like the climax of the show, I've defeated that boss, that's where I end show. I say, well, thank you so much. We're going to see you next time, or we're going to jump into the next action, similar to how on television, if Batman solves the crime or if he takes down the villain, we'll see you next week and Eggman's going to show up or the Riddler.
Yeah.
And that's how I approach my shows. But I'm curious for you, do you keep the stream going after the moment of anticipation has been met?
I do, and I do specifically for community in mind, those who are there and watching and vibing the entire time, and we
Mm,
get to wind down together. It's like, as you grow as a creator, the sense of community is going to be harder to keep because the numbers are growing and growing and growing. You're not going to have that one-on-one interaction anymore with the people who are around from day one, or like the new people that you want to interact with. But I try to build in early crowd, people who show up like super early. We have our moments where we exist together and we can talk, and like I remember things about them, they remember things about me, and we converse. And same with like the back half, the end of stream crowd. We can do that same thing. And to me, I feel like it's really important to maintain that sense of community with them and maintain that sense of togetherness, that like the big show moment happens, cool, now let us be us again and we can exist for a while. And
mm.
that is my approach to it anyway.
I
It's
like
like a
that.
mission debrief at the end. Yes,
It's like a
essentially
mission
like
debrief,
that.
or even like based on like music career. Like some people will go and chat with the artists at the bar before their show, and then they'll go
Yeah,
up on stage, they'll perform, and then afterwards, hey, I'll come after, like after I'm
catch
done
him at the
performing, I'll
merch
come chat with
table.
you again. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so that's a
That's
really nice bookend that you've created for your
yes.
shows.
Because my biggest thing is like, I know the more that a stream grows, the more, not that the sense of community dissipates, but it changes. It goes
Mm,
from me being able to like see somebody in the audience, like Dino.
mm,
I remember the things that you're going through, Dino, and we can like talk about these things. Lauralee, same. It's like I remember and like have this connection to the people in our community. But as you grow, you're gonna eventually lose that. That's just
mm.
fact of the matter. You can't have 20,000 viewers and then be able to like recall every single person. But the bookends, somebody just clipped something in my stream. That's what
I
that
just shouted you out, so you're getting that right
Oh,
now.
okay. Okay, I was like, the lights react to things. Sorry if they just go haywire.
I love that.
Um, but yeah, it's the sense of community on the prologue of the stream and the epilogue of the stream. Stuff that I look forward to the most, where we can just exist and be together.
Mm,
So we have our huge main moments, and then we have our time to just um be with each other and be a community. And I think that is incredibly important if that's what you want as a streamer, because some people don't want that. But like for me, I like the connection feel. I like knowing that the space we're cultivating, the space I'm trying to cultivate, and the viewers who are helping me cultivate it, they still feel comfortable. We still are together in this, and that is something I don't want to lose.
mm.
So that's kind of why I do it the way that I do.
I love that. And it's definitely something, it's for the broadcasters who are watching right now, like something to consider. Like, how are you bookending your content? In the same way, I compare a lot to like Bob Ross's executions. He lets you know how he's going to be painting. He tells you the paints of how you can contribute. Then he gets into his show. And then when he closes, he often will shout out, oh, we've done this great event, shouts out some of the other painters in his community, and starts to give the opportunity for a community to be a part of his show. So there's different ways you can approach your show, but I think there's a great way, as you just highlighted, to bookend with moments for your community to exist with you and share with you, and or celebrate with you if you accomplish something incredible during your show.
Yeah.
When I saw a question in there, and I'm actually just curious because you had mentioned how you spend obviously like a portion of your time on the broadcast and portions go outwards. There was a question regarding, like utilization of Facebook when it comes to marketing or anything like that. I guess I'm curious for you, have you found any social media services or marketing means to be the most effective for you bringing people into your Twitch shows?
Well, Twitter was my main thing, but like now that site is on fire. I
Oh,
was
jeez.
I was just from the music world. Twitter was used heavily in the music world before kind of shifting to more content related world, because music wise Twitter is not great for that anymore. But it is that was my main platform of I knew how to use Twitter well. I knew how to
Mm,
cultivate and create posts in a way that felt engaging and felt like it was an elevator pitch if I'm posting a clip or like talking about serious topics. I know how to like use that website in a way that got the point across.
mm,
So I'm still Unfortunately, still on Twitter, even though I don't really want to be right now. Hopefully that website disappears. Listen,
Oh, jeez.
free me from my mortal coil. Sorry. Anyway, these views are mine and mine alone. There we go.
No. When I think about it, it's just like it's disappointing when we lean heavy into external like social media like aspects. We build up followerships and we start getting those messages outbound to people, and then
Yeah.
when something shifts either in the algorithm or the tone, there's a lot of individuals, including myself, that experience like sunk cost fallacy of like, well, I have to keep being on it because I've invested 11 years of my life on there, so I just have to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge that I think we face when it comes to this.
Yeah. It's like, I'm using Instagram more. Instagram's the one that I use the least. I just keep forgetting about it. But Instagram has made some strides with its like channel situation, with its reach with reels. That does help a lot. I will forever say, like, make sure you are utilizing platforms that you have time to learn. Don't just be on it just for the sake of it, like, because you're wasting effort and wasting time where you could utilize that time better. So, I'm really learning Instagram again and how to capitalize on that while, still having my hold on Twitter and what I'm doing there, but then also taking advantage of short form content. YouTube Shorts does really well. TikTok does really well, as long as TikTok sticks around. But it's just learning and understanding how each platform operate and how the content is utilized and viewed is a big thing. Your TikTok that you post might not perform the same on YouTube Shorts because the algorithm or the audience, usually it's the audience, algorithm. Just take algorithm out of your lexicon for a bit when you create content and just figure out what the audiences do on each platform, because you have virtually no control of the algorithm. You can try to game it, but it's going to change in a few months anyway, and you have to relearn, and it's a never-ending battle. So focus on trying to figure out, what does the audience like on this platform? What do they dislike on this platform? And go into creating content with that in mind.
That's a really good
tangent.
No, that's very good, because it's similar to how I would approach and even coach many of the creators that I've worked with over the years. When you think about the intent of each of these services or platforms, what are they actually seeking when it comes to the types of content of which they want to be showcased? So like, for example, if we're looking at early Instagram, it was magazine feed style, high quality photos of which can showcase your personality, and that would be the main thing within that garden of which would be promoted. Obviously it switched over to reels, and they were doing heavy promotion towards reels there for a while. So you have to think through each of these services, the intent of what are they looking for to be seen, and can you apply to that? And I think it's also fine to say, you know what, I am not comfortable with using that service, or I really don't want to invest my time into that, because time is the one, basically the one asset that we don't get back when we think of our efforts and our energy and everything we put forward. Time is something you will never get back. So how you choose to spend your time is very important. And you want to make sure that it's going towards something that gives you either personal joy, return, you name it. So something to really reflect on. We're rapidly approaching, speaking of time, we're rapidly approaching our time on this front, but
oh my God,
Detune, I wanted to see if, I know, right? I'm telling you, the show goes fast. But I wanted to see if you have a piece of advice for an individual. And I'm not thinking for the person who is just starting. I'm thinking for a person who has been creating for years, but hasn't quite found their pocket yet. If you have a piece of advice you could give to a person who's trying to figure out what that gem is for them, that will take them forward in their creative career.
So I guess the biggest thing is, like, sit back and try to, if you are trying to go for a career in a career-minded situation, figure out what value you're bringing to that space. I think that's very important. If you were going down that mindset of like, okay, I am a 2K streamer. There's a bunch of 2K streamers. What can I do that makes me provide value that is different than the other 2K streamers? And having that niche could be a really good way of doing it. Expanding on what it means for your community and why your community, what are the cornerstones of your community for those new coming in? That is also a good way of thinking about the next step to do. The biggest thing I also want to say is like, if you can have a schedule, have a schedule. People need to know when you're going to be live so they can tune back in. Having a schedule the earliest decision I did in my career to gain some traction was getting a set schedule, because people were showing up day one and then pushing you up in the categories that you are, or I guess day one, minute one. So you're being pushed up in the categories. Say you're in 2K, say you're in Warzone, wherever you're streaming, you're immediately being pushed up a bit because people know how to find you and where to find you, and that's going to increase your visibility overall. So I feel like those are really three good things to keep in mind. The other thing would be, I mean, if you feel like you are happy with the content that you're making, if you feel like you're watching your VODs back and you're like, this slaps, I can see the appeal of this, but I'm not getting the eyes on it, then I feel like that is the moment to start looking at other platforms and be like, okay, maybe I should try to get eyes from TikTok or YouTube Shorts, or, you know, now we have the ability to dual stream to other platforms. What's the harm in just going live on TikTok or live on YouTube as well, and just like existing in both and just seeing if you can cast a wider net if you feel like your content is where it needs to be.
That's a really solid advice there. And also just like thinking through the marketing aspects when it comes to finding that viewership outbound, see where those communities exist. And I think something to reflect on is think of the community of which makes you feel comfortable. We talked about that at the start of our show. You know, where do the fellow Earthbound lovers live? Well, that's starman.net. That was a website that I quickly ingrained myself in. You know, for Pokemon fans, where do Pokemon fans exist? Where do Call of Duty fans? You name it. Like, think of your space of, or even those who are interested in paranormal investigation. Where do they exist on the internet? And become a part of their community, because that is another way to build into your overall, hopefully, empire over time, where these people exist, and think about how expansive they could be. Really solid advice. This is a fantastic conversation, Detune. I'm very impressed with your journey and everything that you've accomplished to date, and I'm very excited to eventually see your show in the crypts.
I appreciate it
When that happens.
Yes, put me in the crypts.
Exactly. Is there any shows coming up that people can look forward to? Make sure y'all are following, by the way, Detune. There, you can click on the title there and follow directly there. But what shows are coming up that people can expect to watch on your broadcast?
So I haven't announced it yet, and I'm announcing the date for the next paranormal stream tomorrow on my stream. I stream every Sunday, Monday nights, 6:30 p.m. PST, Wednesday, Thursday daytimes, noon PST. So I'm hitting every time zone. Another good thing to keep in mind if you want to build an audience. But for those curious in the paranormal thing, I can't tell you the date, but I can tell you that it's gonna be next week sometime. Next week we are doing a paranormal stream, and Brat Chat. You'll have to wait till tomorrow to know the exact day, but it's gonna be next week.
There's the teaser. So y'all got to stay tuned to all of the announcements, follow on the socials as well as in the channel. Make sure the notifications are on. So Notification Squad, get on that so you don't miss that show. And over on my channel, I discovered basically a roguelike crab game last night, and I lost a good 3 hours into that. What was it called? It was Crab something. It was absolutely incredible. But it's roguelike and it's crabs. What more could you ask for? Exactly. We're going to send the love on our side. We're going to send a raid over to a fellow ambassador. We're going to be raiding Kelpsy, who looks to be playing Paper Mario on that side. So let's get a raid triggered on this front. And we will see you next time, y'all. I hope you have a great rest of the day, even better tomorrow. Thanks again, Detune. We will see you all next time. Take care.
Bye, everyone.